The Diplomat, 12th of March 2024, the significance of Sweden's NATO membership for the Indo-Pacific. As NATO directs its attention towards a belligerent China in the east, Sweden's accession will likewise have repercussions for countries in the Indo-Pacific. Sweden became the official 32nd member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, on March 7, nearly 2 years after its initial application and 1 year after Finland's accession. Turkey and Hungary initially rejected Sweden's application for accession to the European Union in May 2022, shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This development has sparked modifications in the European security framework and has significant ramifications for security in the Indo-Pacific. Sweden's national and international identity as a neutral and non-aligned state is definitively severed by this historic event, even though it has been frequently emphasized that Sweden abandoned neutrality in practice a few years after joining the European Union. Furthermore, this transition signifies NATO's unwavering control over the Baltic Sea area and the Arctic, a region of critical strategic importance to Russia and to which China, as part of its enormous Belt and Road Initiative, also aspires access. Sweden's accession to full membership in NATO has undoubtedly strengthened the alliance in the face of the Russian challenge. As NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg lauded, it will make NATO stronger, Sweden safer, and the entire alliance more secure. Nevertheless, in its pursuit of maintaining international standards alongside Indo-Pacific nations and with a strategic focus on China, NATO's expansion into Sweden also carries significant ramifications for the Indo-Pacific. Sweden's increased support for the Indo-Pacific framework might be facilitated by NATO membership. For instance, the country could issue its strategy for the region in the future. Does the occurrence present an intensification of bipolarity? How, if at all, will India be affected? Reflecting, a brief synopsis of the declining neutrality of Sweden. Even though Sweden has been a NATO partner for peace since 1994, its collaboration with the organization has consistently been influenced by its assessment of the threat posed by Russia. Sweden adhered to the dictum non-aligned in peacetime to maintain neutrality in the event of war throughout the Cold Conflict. However, this mandate progressively transformed from being an actuality to more of a narrative. Sweden's passive stance was rescinded in 2009 by adopting the Declaration of Solidarity and its subsequent EU integration and the 2007 Lisbon Treaty. In contrast, skepticism and the notion of a militarily non-aligned state endured. Nevertheless, the escalating hostilities with Russia subsequent to the annexation of Crimea in 2014 incited Sweden to enhance collaboration by designating itself as an enhanced opportunities partner of NATO. This emphasized political dialogues, joint exercises and training, and greater information sharing. Furthermore, Sweden's military fragility was exposed in 2013 when Russian bomber aircraft simulated an assault on Stockholm that the country was unable to repel independently. Additional concern arose a year later when reports surfaced regarding the presence of a Russian submarine in the Stockholm archipelago of the Baltic Sea. Subsequently, Sweden entered into a host nation support agreement with NATO in 2016, securing the privilege of receiving military and civilian assistance. Despite the implementation of stringent security measures, Sweden's policy of military non-alignment failed to address security deficiencies in Europe or promote a constructive agenda for building bridges. Particularly during this period of turbulent and polarizing geopolitics, this has only served to heighten security paranoia. Traditional conceptions of defense and Stockholm's sense of security and stability were profoundly disrupted by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Beyond the threat of Russia, an examination of China. Although the conflict influenced Sweden's decision to join NATO and Ukraine, the extent to which Stockholm operates as a member will presumably be impacted by China. Regarding China, NATO has emerged as a vital vector in transatlantic cooperation. Although NATO formally acknowledged the expanding influence of Beijing in 2019 as both an opportunity and a challenge, it was not yet perceived as a security threat comparable to that of Russia. The lengthy overdue revision of NATO's strategic concept in 2022, which followed the pandemic, highlighted the transformation in the global geopolitical landscape. The convergence of China and Russia was not the only subject of attention. China's coercive diplomatic, technological, and economic strategies, which aim to restrict the values and interests of its allies and thereby undermine the rules-based order, were also openly criticized. Although NATO's primary objective continues to be the Euro-Atlantic, the organization has recognized the significance of countering China's geopolitical and ideological rivalry, primarily by establishing stronger security alliances with Indo-Pacific states that share its views. However, this continued to occur within the parameters of engagement, which has not been abandoned. Sweden was the inaugural Western nation to formally establish diplomatic ties with the People's Republic of China, PRC, in 1950, despite the limited scope of trade and exchanges. Sweden's 2019 explicit formulation of a China policy has occurred concurrently with the European Union's, and NATO's, shift in stance towards China. It has required striking a nuanced equilibrium between the dynamic of a partner and an adversary or between political divergences and business goals. In addition, bilateral cooperation has been hampered in recent years by, among other things, concerns regarding China's human rights violations and Chinese attempts to gather intelligence on Sweden's capabilities, including technology and defense planning. Furthermore, China's aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy has contributed to the escalation of tensions. Circumstances such as the 2015 abduction of Swedish national Gui Minhai, the subsequent diplomatic dispute, and the collusion between Russia and China after 2022 have compelled a politically naive Sweden to abandon its non-alignment and neutrality position and adopt a more serious approach towards the threat posed by an authoritarian China, including its ally Russia. Sweden's pursuit of a China policy more closely aligned with the EU's, which is still wavering between engagement and the need for caution, was also prompted by deteriorating Sino-Swedish relations. Sweden will undoubtedly align its China policy with that of its security partners, particularly the United States, now that it is a member of NATO. A survey conducted in 2023 by the European Council on Foreign Relations, ECFR, revealed that Sweden holds one of the most extremist public perspectives on China. 56% of Swedes supported sanctioning China if it supported Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Swedish security policy characterizes China exclusively as a threat and not a competitor. This position is more stringent than the prevailing European position and more in line with the United States stance. Sweden, as a member of NATO, will presumably impact the alliance's eastward mission through its endorsement of a more assertive position regarding China. This may involve revising political limitations that hinder NATO from characterizing China as a security menace to Europe. Emerging prospects in the Indo-Pacific region? How can NATO institutionalize such a stance regarding China? Sweden has historically adopted a neutral stance, prioritizing its role as a mediator and establishing itself as a significant player in conflict resolution. Given its historical background, it is improbable that Sweden will adopt a foreign policy that completely disregards the promotion of dialogues and the prioritization of peace in favor of a reactive strategy centered on countering China and inadvertently inciting a confrontation. Conversely, Sweden intends to bolster NATO's ongoing strategy of consolidating its Indo-Pacific influence through security alliances. Above all else, Sweden's accession to NATO demonstrates that it does not wish to remain isolated in the developing global security architecture. Stockholm will endeavor to strengthen NATO's customized initiatives involving partner states in the Indo-Pacific, specifically New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, and Australia. Furthermore, this will enhance the strategic focus of Sweden's bilateral relations with these four nations, all of which have distinct policies or strategies regarding the Indo-Pacific that ultimately serve the interests of a democratic global order based on rules. Furthermore, the increasing amicability between Sweden and India, another nation that has declined to engage in military alliances but has successfully strengthened its security alliances primarily to counter China's aggression, will be of the utmost importance. Sweden's accession to NATO will not directly affect its relations with India at this time, however, the alliance will undoubtedly heighten the degree of convergence regarding China as a shared concern. Due to its new NATO membership, Sweden's understanding of the Indo-Pacific will be further enhanced by adding unique regional perspectives from East Asia, South Asia, Oceania, or the Pacific. Similar to other European nations, France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Czechia, that have formulated their Indo-Pacific strategies, Sweden is immediately concerned about maritime security in the Indo-Pacific. This apprehension stems from the potential economic security repercussions that may result from threats to sea lines of communication. China's aggression in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait, in addition to its expanding presence in the Indian Ocean region, generates global concern. Should a blockade become an element of China's purported new normal tactics, NATO member Sweden must develop a tangible security policy for the Indo-Pacific despite the organization's primary emphasis on Euro-Atlantic security. This is due to the intricate interdependencies of global energy and goods trade, among other factors. Given the circumstances, NATO's established local alliances with the four countries mentioned above, along with Sweden's personal relations with India, may enable a more substantial long-term commitment to the Indo-Pacific Initiative. An effort to secure arms deals? Sweden's competent and competitive defense industrial complex, one of the largest in Europe and home to major defense contractors such as Saab, one of the top 100 arms-producing and military services companies in the world, and BAE Systems Hägglunds, is the subject of an ongoing debate regarding Sweden's entry into NATO. This would be a significant attraction for NATO, as evidenced by the record sales of defense equipment that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. This is not only for security against Russia, a permanent adversary, but also in light of the escalating threat scenario in the Indo-Pacific. Conversely, Sweden's enhanced operational access, encompassing the exchange of intelligence and sensitive information, will generate additional prospects for its defense sector and consequently bolster its defense exports. In the Indo-Pacific, for instance, Saab's Gripen, which has been marketed as the most cost-effective fighter currently available, has attracted considerable interest. In light of the escalating tensions with China in the South China Sea, it has been reported that the Philippines is contemplating replacing the F-16 Fighting Falcons with the Swedish JAS-39 Gripen multi-role jet fighters. Simultaneously, Sweden's provision of military equipment to the region as a NATO member, in conjunction with NATO's increased engagement with East Asian nations such as Japan and South Korea, will contribute to the argument put forth by China and North Korea against the alliance, that the United States' objective is to expand NATO to the Indo-Pacific in some fashion, which is referred to as eastward expansion. China has consistently characterized the quadrilateral security dialogue, consisting of the United States, Australia, India, and Japan, as an Asia-Pacific NATO. This situation would not only exacerbate regional arms competition but also instability in the Indo-Pacific. Bipolarity, a déjà vu? Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, middle powers such as Japan and India have demonstrated remarkable diplomatic prowess and an ever-expanding international profile. Strong assessments have accompanied these developments, supporting the rise of asymmetric multipolarity. Nevertheless, the re-establishment of bipolarity is once more being scrutinized as Sweden and Finland align themselves with the US-led NATO in the midst of increasing strategic collaboration among authoritarian nations such as Russia, Iran, and North Korea, among others, which is headed by China. Due to this, the likelihood of the emergence of genuine multipolarity is dim, given the enduring power asymmetry between the tremendous and intermediate powers and the United States' continued significance and influence. Notwithstanding these debates, the current predicament of international governance necessitates the attention of both Europe and the rest of the world. Hence, alterations required to enhance domestic or regional security, such as Sweden's accession to NATO, must be accompanied by increased endeavors to rejuvenate multilateral institutions that facilitate genuine stability and peace.